So I figured today we could look at my Fallout 3 concept art book. I have both the Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 art books. The Fallout game series as a whole was very impactful on me growing up. And so, of course, when I saw that there were art books, I was like, definitely gotta own those. So, let's take a look at this. So, let's get started. The art of Fallout 3. Introduction. Adam Adamowicz, our concept artist, drew a lot of stuff. He managed to do this, always with a smile, while Todd, Emil, and myself hemmed and hawed over every sketch, usually requesting yet another iteration. This alone is quite the achievement, but the real achievement is an extensive collection of wonderful designs that capture the spirit of the Fallout universe in loving detail. This book's goal is to give the reader a peek of the rich collection of artwork that our art team has been privileged to work from during Fallout 3's production. Pre-production begins with a series of paintings we commissioned from Craig Mullins. These were focused on the big picture, mainly atmosphere and scope, something to provide inspiration for how various locations in the world would feel emotionally. Color palettes, sense of scale, and density of destruction were the elements we tried to capture with these, and the final in-game result is fairly faithful to these concepts. The next step was to go down a long list of costumes, creatures, weapons, and environments that would need detailed drawings for our mesh builders to work off of. Early in the project, we spent quite a lot of time iterating through a few key designs, such as the Volt suit and Pip-Boy. But as time went on, we didn't have the luxury to do 20 drawings for each asset, and the pace picked up considerably. There isn't much in the game that wasn't concepted beforehand. Anyone who works with Adam will soon come to appreciate the speed of which he can get through a lot of material while maintaining a sense of humor and creativity that was essential for the world of Fallout 3. Enjoy! Istvan. So I know the concept artist, Adam, that they're referring to, he has passed away. I'm not sure I can't remember the year that he died, but it's cool that his art will still continue to live on. Impacting, I know he did work concept art for Skyrim as well, so let's continue to appreciate his work. DC. The urbanized area in and around downtown Washington, D.C. is a key location in Fallout 3. We wanted the player to feel a sense of foreboding as he explained a dense concrete jungle of streets and alleyways. The palette was kept cool and blue, sky always overcast, to contrast sharply with the stark, warm sunlight of the Wasteland. Given that we were designing the aftermath of a devastating nuclear war, we did a bit of research to see just what would be left standing after such a holocaust. The answer is not much, so the design was made early on that we would take some liberties with the level of destruction so that enough interesting stuff would still be left standing for the player to explore. This meant quite a few of the structures, although heavily damaged, would still be intact to provide locations for dungeons and the like. We treated the urban zones of our world map as a large, multi-sectioned outdoor dungeon, using destroyed buildings and walls of concrete, rubble, and rebar to wall off various zones or cells that we would interconnect via underground subway tunnels. These paintings give a sense of the level of detail we wanted to capture in order to have a realistic sense of destruction and decay throughout the city. They provided the world artists a benchmark to hit in terms of realistic object density, something that required a few creative tricks in order to have environments like this run smoothly in the game's engine. I just remember when I would try to go through DC playing Fallout 3 for the first time, I absolutely always got lost and trapped somewhere. I love the concept of Rivet City. I just love the idea of having giant naval ships serve as towns. I think that's really cool. So I really liked Rivet City a lot. Project Purity. Wasteland. The antithesis to downtown DC is the open wasteland, which comprised the vast majority of Fallout's real estate. The rule is bright, wide, open spaces instead of the dark, claustrophobic streets of the city. The challenge was re-envisioning the wastes as they would appear on the East Coast, instead of the western, desert-like locales from the previous games. We wanted it to feel similar, but look appropriate for the new location. Our version was made up of treacherous, rocky terrain with coarse dirt, mud, and burnt tree husks littering the landscape. There's plenty of dried and dead grass and shrubs, but no healthy green plant life to be seen anywhere. It's very unlikely that a great deal of plant life would return after a few years and probably thrive in the real world, it's very likely, no matter how irradiated, but it was an appropriate style depiction to keep the world dry and brown in order to fit with the classic Fallout aesthetic. Even with these atmospheric paintings as a reference, it took time from our wasteland to come together in-game. Early on, it was too sparse and barren to be interesting enough from a gameplay perspective, with distances too great between the various scattered points of interest. But as the world art team iterated through hundreds of cells by hand, adding many additional details and locations, the wasteland quickly became an exciting place to wonder and explore. So I definitely have memories of running around the wasteland, usually with a red scorpion chasing after me, and me just like with, a character limping along with a broken leg. I'm just like, good times. Paradise Falls. I like this little bit of storytelling right here. They've got like this T-51 armor. I'm not really sure which kind of power armor it is, but some scavs kind of standing proudly around their capture. So I love concept art like this. When I was in high school and I was really into art, I very much wanted to become a concept artist for video games. Either a concept artist for video games or animated movies, or work as an animator, although I was more drawn to concept art. And I actually I went to a public state university for school, but I was really lucky. My freshman year, I got to take a digital animation class with a professor who had worked as an animator, and he basically said that it's like if you work in video games or just like film animation, you're working insane hours. Like it's 14-hour days, 6 days a week aren't uncommon. And I was just like, I think I want a little more free time than that. And so I kind of made that choice to not pursue it on Pip-Boy was one of the first 3 iconic elements we wanted to nail down in terms of look and feel, the other 2 being the Vault Suit and Brotherhood of Steel power armor. This was a good exercise in determining the approach we would take for all industrial design in the game. A blend of classic 50s aesthetics with a futuristic twist. This is a delicate balance. Swing too far towards the retro and you end up with something campy and unrealistic, but too far with the futurism and you risk a generic look. After much iteration, the design was eventually narrowed down to a basic look. Once Adam's drawings all start looking too similar, we know we've honed in on the most likely design. The overall design isn't too overstyled, as this is meant to be a tough piece of field equipment. The device clamps onto the user's arms, fastened via bolts, which implies that it doesn't come off very often. Can you imagine, having that Pip-Boy on your arm? They make a few references in the game that it's clamped on, so I was just your left arm's got to get, definitely develop some muscle in that arm because you're used to moving that thing around. It prominently featured a bulky mini CRT display, hooded to prevent glare from the hot Wasteland sun. There are various buttons and knobs, significantly oversized to facilitate handling with a gloved hand. The grill indicates that the circuitry within can get pretty hot and proper ventilation is required. Also note the gloved hand with a control box mounted on the back. It has a large knob and coiled wire connecting with the main unit. That knob is the primary controller for the user to manipulate the on-screen cursor. It was only years later that I realized we should have put the knobs and control on the right side of the screen as opposed to the left, as this would have been considerably more ergonomic. Oh well, ergonomics were never a priority in design for this era. Get some more Pip-Boys. My pages are falling out. But got costume design, which is my favorite. I absolutely love costume design. So I'm gonna be careful with these pages. So you have a lineup of the vault suits, which I would someday love to make a vault suit with all of the proper seams and design layout. I know they're supposed to be made of leather originally. And I have done a cosplay in the past of Moira Brown from Fallout. But she has a Robco suit and not the, I would argue, more purposefully, more intentfully detailed design of the vault suits. But it'd be kind of fun to do a Moira Brown ASMR video. And also tunnel snakes rule. Look at they kind of talking about, those little notes. Denim-like material, heavy durable stitching, padded knees, combat loafer boots. Then we got some Wasteland designs here, which, all of these would be super fun to make in real life. Just costume design is so fun, in my opinion. Got some the merchant looks, some more Wastelanders. I have a little bit more pre-war type of looks, a little bit more elegant, or folks working as scientists. I love this side profile one right here. distinctly remember these two costumes because definitely had my various characters probably wear at least one of them or both of them at some point. Some more looks. Wasteland looks. Slaver looks. I also enjoy this little detail here of the little, like this blonde pigtail kind of being worn as like a keychain or a trophy. It's just oh, it says, yeah, cheerleader braid / trophy. Obviously going for drawing stuff from Mad Max, obviously. We have some leather armors and some metal armors, which who doesn't love a good shoulder spike? Shoulder spikes. They're coming back in 2020. Combat armor. Some more like this, the Raiders little like Wasteland pigtail helmet. But Raiders always be serving looks too. And then we got some leather steel. This one's just very interesting to me. Kind of reminds me of one artist who's kind of did concept art for Alien. I can't recall. Yeah, some Enclave looks. I always thought the Enclave armor, it always reminded me of ants, which I'm pretty sure is intentional. Just makes me think of ants. Creatures. Adam's approach to designing a creature is to start with its personality. From the player's perspective, in the midst of an intense battle as he fends off slashing 10-inch claws with a tiny 10mm pistol, the personality may not be the most critical element in determining how best to kill or not be killed. Yet it's in this thoughtful process of determining a beast's origins, evolutionary path, maybe hopes and dreams, that results in a convincing design that is a cut or two above generic monster. Many of Fallout's creatures fall into the category of mutation by radiation, a broad category that has many subtle variations. Mutated by FEV in the case of a supermutant, by far too much extensive exposure to radiation, such as the plight of the ghouls, or just really bad skin from just, well, hanging out outside too much, as this seems to be the case with almost everybody in this world. Our texture artists had an interesting time painting these subtle variations. There have been many creature designs in many movies and games, and staying fresh and original with our particular menagerie was quite challenging at times. Luckily, the previous games offered a great deal of good genetic material to work from, and having the opportunity to try and update these classic designs was a real treat for the art team. And yes, Mirelurks are heavily mutated blue crabs. We are in Maryland after all. These guys capture the B-movie guy in a monster suit spirit beautifully. A few of these sketches were for creatures that never quite made it into the game. Can you guess which ones? So we got a pack of Brahmin right here, going along with their urgent. Merchant. Smart ramen. Always just looking very fresh and organic. Looking good. Some red roaches. Some molerets. Rat scorpions. My nemesis. Bloat flies. Shoot their little maggots at you. Just good times all around. Everybody's looking cute. I must say, I love how Deathclaws look. Like their design is so cool to me. I think they're supposed to be mutated off, I want to say, like iguanas or chameleons. Like it's something kind of humorously, something small. But I love their claws. I love the curve of their horns. Some good horn curvatures. Oh, Yao Guai, which I'm pretty sure means monster in Chinese. Yeah. Oh, a catfish mirelurk. That would be cool. You get some Supia mutants. Just looking beefy. Ooh, this one's really cool. I like this one right here. That one is cool. The engine block flail. The behemoths were cool. I did think it was interesting in Fallout New Vegas that they didn't have any behemoths. But I think that just had to do with the lore of New Vegas being more in the desert, kind of less populated by people running FEV experiments. But obviously there still were some ones out there. Oh yes, I love this, like the design of like the shopping cart right there. And definitely probably having both dead and alive victims stored in there to eat later on, as you do. This is cool. Just the kind of sloping shoulders, and I really like ghouls too. We love a good ghoul. I am terrified of the glowing ghouls, but they're also very pretty. Oh yes, the FEV mutations that resulted in just in like the centaurs. I know they're kind of results of the FEV experimentations, as are the super mutants. But I think I read somewhere that the centaurs are like they're treated like pets. They're treated like pets by the super mutants, which I honestly think that is really cute and adorable. I think that's really sweet. So I like that. But we got some mirelurks. Just looking dandy. Oh yes, I really like the Yao Guai. I think they're cute. Very nice. Oh, robots. I loved the Iron Giant when I was a child. I saw it when I was like 8, 9, or 10. I don't remember. But I just remember seeing the Iron Giant and being like, oh. And that also has a lot of like a lot of mid-century influence, and then obviously retrofuturism influence. And I think that was also a huge reason why I came to really love the Fallout game so much, was because even from a very young age, I was very captured by just mid-century design. So Liberty Prime was a treat to encounter. Although I really don't recall the final battle with Liberty Prime all that well, so I don't think it must have been that good. Alright, robots. Emil's input on every robot was make it more like Robbie the robot. And this was the mindset we had in approaching the various mechanical creatures in the world. For many robots that carried over from the previous games, we tried to stay true to the original design, as with Mr. Handy and the RoboBrain. Where we did diverge, the reason was to better fit the robot's basic design premise. For example, Mr. Handy was given a friendlier, rounder design appropriate for his original purpose. I'm a fan of the classic Soviet era aerospace aesthetic, so you'll see hints of Soyuz and Sputnik in a few designs as well. The Protectron is an original design that went through many iterations before settling on something that does have the vintage character of Robbie, and we think he captures the quintessential 1950s robot character more than any other. And the SentryBot from the previous game looked a bit like a generic mech, so we took some liberties here and ended up with an imposing looking tripod mounted tank with guns for arms. I do like the SentryBot designs. And Liberty Prime. Who doesn't like a friendly giant robot? We definitely had a bit of Iron Giant in mind when we pictured this guy, but Adam came up with an original, perfectly proportioned, towering robot that captured Liberty's Captain America personality. Then, for the longest time, we labored over how Liberty would launch his nuclear warheads. Railgun arms? Launcher mounted on a shoulder? None of these ideas seemed quite right until it occurred to us. Fat boy nuclear warheads thrown like footballs. There are a few moments in design where you know you got it just right. This was one of them. I forgot about that. So we have the robots here. I do really like the robots. I think that is also a thing I enjoy a lot about Fallout is I enjoy that it's not even just human characters, various conflicting human groups that you're coming into contact with, but it's also conscious monsters, conscious robots, unconscious robots. And seeing like the iBot just makes me think of in Fallout New Vegas, there's the one iBot companion, Eddie, that's what I call him, Eddie, in the game, and Eddie will respond in game with happy beeps or sad chirps or just very, very cute and adorable responses in its robot fashion. I really enjoy the personality of very many of the robots. They're great, so I'll let you have a better look at SentryBot. When playing Fallout 4, I would have, in the earlier levels, I would definitely have absolute fear running into a SentryBot. Liberty Prime. I don't know why is it that like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but programmed to thwart communism. Because we were all about the Red Scare in the 50s and 60s. There's more Liberty Prime. Just looking good. We love some space race vibes. ones, you come across nice ones, you come across passive ones, you come across violent ones. It's great. Weapons. It wasn't long into the project before I heard rumblings amongst producers, cursing the number of playable weapons we had to build for this game. There are quite a few, and the amount of work that goes into getting a weapon built, animated, and programmed is substantial, comparable to the amount of development overhead a new creature model requires. On the other hand, the effort was certainly worth it. The amount of variety in the weapons, both in terms of design and functionality, is very entertaining and makes the player's discovery of a new example a memorable experience. That is true. The design process for these varied greatly depending on the nature of the weapon. The more mundane designs, either real world or intended to feel like real world, such as an assault rifle or shotgun, were designed by combining interesting elements from various existing guns into a new whole that felt slightly familiar but original at the same time. When it came to the build your own and other exotic weapons, we went crazy. Physical plausibility may seem to take a backseat to some of these ideas, but the player must suspend belief and put himself in the mindset of a culture that imagined mini nuclear reactors and ray guns as real possibilities in the near future. That being said, Adam was intent on making sure every weapon design, no matter how outlandish, looked authentic and mechanically sound. Like the junk shooter right here. I never used that one all that much, but that's just because I didn't like to carry around too much junk in the third game. And that changed by the fourth game though, obviously. The shish kebab. That was one of my favorite weapons to use in New Vegas. I had one of the characters I made in New Vegas was a Michonne a la The Walking Dead, and I used the shish kebab as her main weapon because it was definitely the most katana-like that I had access to. I just think that weapons are really cool. In that same animation class I had talked about a little bit earlier, we had done a part of the class, a assignment where all of us had to design ray guns. And so my ray gun was, I was like, I want to do something with crystals. Like I want to blend in this this organic yet cartoony crystal shape into a ray gun. And so like you have like the more manufactured process part of the gun, and then you have like the crystals or the charging powers, like thinking of Atlantis, definitely. The animated Disney movie where they use the crystals as power sources. So I was like, I'm going to make a ray gun based off that. And so there's like a little loading dock in the back of my ray gun design where you could put these crystals. And so I created the 3D model of in the Maya program to create my ray gun, and it was a lot of fun. Very intense, very stressful work, as Maya was a completely new program to me, but it paid off. So got some real spike guns. I didn't use all that often. We have some sniper rifles, which if you don't play a Bethesda open world game and don't play a stealthy sniper at some point, I don't know if you actually played the game like once. No. Some Fat Mans, some missile launchers. I definitely didn't use the sawed-off shotguns that much. I found them frustrating. I didn't like enemies to get too close to me because I'm a big baby. I'm a chicken. in either for the same reason. So I always had lots of missiles or flamer fuel or just like Fat Man, just like little mini nuclear warheads, just because I was also like, I'm gonna save this for a special time. I'm gonna use this for a special fight, and then I never would. And then I'd be like, I should have used this, and then you'd end up inevitably going out and using it on like geckos. But such is life. Overkill can have a certain beauty and joy to it as well. Plasma rifle, laser rifles. I didn't use energy weapons all that often. I just didn't find them quite as appealing as more traditional guns or melee. I really enjoyed melee weapons. Yeah. Just anything. I was saying I don't like when people get close, but I didn't like it with things where I had to reload. With melee, it felt a little bit more in my control, so I really liked the Deathclaw. And I did like Veronica's, like her whole punchy thing. I enjoyed her design period. Definitely. The companions in Fallout New Vegas were a definite highlight. I do kind of wish I had a book on New Vegas. Anyway, hardware. Inspiration for much of the various bits of technology in Fallout 3 came from both commercial product design and military industrial design of the 1950s to early 1960s. Elements from items such as old portable television sets and army field radios were studied and incorporated in some fashion along the way. We often tried to achieve a careful balance of realism, future retro style, and practicality in the objects that people would interact with in the world. In terms of realism, it's not an essential factor, but a sense of believability within the rules as defined in the Fallout universe is important. Technology in the world of Fallout 3 is somewhat paradoxical in that it's incredibly advanced in some ways and downright primitive in others. Certain technological advancements that we take for granted in our own history either did not occur or developed along a very different path. One element that has advanced to an incredible degree is the use of miniature fission reactors in a variety of applications. Inspired by the futuristic 1957 Ford Nucleon concept car, the idea of everyday vehicles powered by a micronuclear reactor in the trunk is fully realized in the Fallout universe. Of course, hundreds of years after the war, the country is full of automobiles with unstable reactors that are way overdue for a service and replacement. But this makes for the entertaining blowing up of what would otherwise be unremarkable background art. I do remember playing the game, and the first time I realized that the cars would blow up, I think I was killed. But I was like, what was that? And then I tried it out myself, and I was like, oh, that's fun. So, especially when there was just like this one part of the Fallout 3 map in this more southern area. I can't remember the exact place. There's this curving road, and it's full of cars, and there's some raiders nearby. And what you can do is you can set off one car, and they would all cause each other to explode, and that would kill the raiders. And so it's like you would do minimal work for maximum boom. And so that was a hit kind of moment. So the vertibirds in Fallout 4 did crack me up because I felt like the vertibirds always, wanted to get in my way and explode. Oh yeah, so I like these little three-wheelers. I do wonder if I played the Mad Max game. I know it's not the best game, but I would be curious what would even a driving mechanic look like in a Fallout game? Obviously, I'm much more of a fan of the slow. I enjoy walking through environments. I'm a very big fan of like walking simulator games. I just enjoy very casual exploration. I just really like these designs. Mid-century. It'd be poppin'. It'd be good. It knows what it's about. So good. I think I always wanted more to interact with the vending machines more. But maybe if I had the abilities to mod games, I would. I do like these. I very much see the vaults as kind of like, they kind of reminded me of TV sets in a way. I don't know how to explain that, but I like these because it has that, definite 1950s feel. But with the vault, you think of all the promotional posters that the Fallout world would have. And it's like promoting the vaults as being these like wonderful, idyllic, safe places to be, which obviously is very much not the case with the vaults being experimental zones, experiments more often than not with awful consequences. The world. This section covers Fallout's various environments and locations, and the many structures that appear throughout. Although it takes a good deal of trekking through the world to see it all, there's quite a bit of variety in the environments. At one extreme, we have the classic post-apocalyptic, rusty, ramshackle town, but with a twist in Megaton. And at the other are the vaguely Orwellian, massive steel and concrete government buildings in downtown DC, or at least what's left of them. There's a decent variety in architectural styles, a blend of gooky from the 50s and 60s with some 40s era Art Deco thrown in for good measure. And to ground it all with a strong sense of past as we know it, the neoclassic buildings that pervade the heart of the Wasteland, or of the capital, are ever present. Given the scale of the game world and limited resources, we have to resort to building limited sets of buildings of different classes, which we then mix about when building out the game's locations. You'll see here a variety of these structures, some of which appear in-game, but by no means a comprehensive list. Architecture is something that, although we do plenty of designs for, often it's left to the mesh builder to work out the exact implementation as needed. There's a selection of interior environments consisting of standard dungeon types, such as the metro system, pictured here, which I would always get lost in, and abandoned vaults, as well as the cluttered homes of surface dwellers. All of these areas are a combination of the past, hints at the culture and society before the war, with a layer of years of decay and grime, and a final topping of the current struggles as desperate survivors trying to make a home for themselves, be they human or not. There's the subway. I did really enjoy going through all the various subways in game. Oh, yes. Oh, I love environment design. See, this book is tapping into that original love that I had of environment design. Oh. When I draw, I usually draw people, and this is just reminding me that I definitely need to work on doing some environment designs. Oh, I did love the combined buildings and make a ton of, you have different pieces of airplanes and shacks and just making buildings out of anything you can. And it just creates an environment that's both very sad but also very cozy as well. And I think that's a good metaphor for just the human condition overall. Oh yes, Tenpenny Tower. So awesome. I love post-apocalyptic games, but I would never want to live in a post-apocalyptic world. I'm a marshmallow of a woman, and I would be dead instantly. For obvious reasons, if we're talking nuclear bombs here, but I can't handle conflict very well. Oh, maybe in the apocalypse, who's to say that there is going to be strife, It could be like Watchmen, where it brings the world together in a weird way, in a weird, sad way. Oh yes, you got some of this Art Deco kind of vibes, which also reminds me of Bioshock 1 and 2. Growing up, for me to want to play a video game, I just love these. This looks, just the lines. Love me some good lines. For me to want to play a video game, there has to be a really strong art concept behind it, and which is why I was drawn to Fallout, because it had, that mid-century goodness. But with Bioshock, you also had that diesel punk element to it. Again, it's very much very heavily 1930s, 1940s influence, Art Deco influence, that is just a delight to play with, and also serves as a great foil for, something that was built to be shiny and clean and beautiful, and then you have it set as next to, obviously, the lesser human emotions of violence and anger, greed, and etc., etc. But very much our environments impact the way we interpret things and so on. Storyboards. There wasn't a whole lot that we needed to storyboard for this game. Other than the intro movie and ending sequence, there aren't many cinematic sequences that play out in a linear manner that would call for such detailed planning. Included here are two key storyboards, however, that were absolutely critical. First is the intro movie that's shown when you start the game. The first part of this movie, the portion up to the Brotherhood soldier reveal, was the first bit of footage of any game content, in fact, to be revealed to the public at large. This put a lot of pressure on us to make a good first impression. We wanted to do a new but familiar twist on the intro movie from the first game, and the radio and the bus pullback sequence was the result. I remember that. Although we didn't have cinematics in the game, the reality is that we actually have quite a few, but they're dynamically executed whenever you use the game's VATS mechanic, Volt-Tec Assisted Targeting System. Okay, just a quick note about VATS. When I played New Vegas, I played New Vegas before I played Fallout 3, I played through the entire game of New Vegas without realizing how to access VATS. I did not use VATS at all my first few playthroughs of New Vegas. And when I would tell other people who played New Vegas, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I didn't use it. Like, oh my god. So, it's not like anything to be proud of or anything, but just kind of like, how did you not find that? The basic design for the system was to have a context-sensitive camera playback of the player's cued combat actions. Included here is the original storyboard for how we envisioned this camera sequence playing out. And I'm pleased to note that the final result in the game, a few years later, is really not so far off these initial sketches, at least in spirit. As a whole, much of what Adam has drawn in these pages has made the transition to 3D very faithfully, and I think this is a testament to the clarity of vision and quality of the concept work done from pre-production to the closing days of Alpha. I hope you've enjoyed this pocket-sized tour of the art of Fallout 3. So we've got some storyboards here. There's the opening, like the promotional one. Like, damn, if you didn't watch that and get hyped, like, I don't know what to tell you. That whole, I know it's kind of a cliche now to have like old-fashioned music playing over destructive, goings-ons, but darn if that didn't sustain me, nourish me narratively, I don't know what else did. I love that type of stuff so much. And just the end. So the lead artist was Istvan, who is the guy who wrote this, but those are the peeps who did all the work, so I really hope you enjoyed listening, watching me go through Fallout 3. If you would like me to go through the Fallout 4 book, let me know. I can also show you my Moira Brown cosplay. It's been a while since I've worn it, and I would definitely